From the day Liam and I exchanged vows, I knew our relationship was special. But it wasn't until 2 years after our marriage that our life took a turn that I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams. Liam, with his smile that lights up any room, arrived one day with a bold proposal, as bold as the love we had for each other. What if we opened up our relationship? He suggested one evening as we huddled on the couch, watching the rain fall behind the foggy windows. At first, I was surprised. Open our relationship, I repeated, my voice a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. Liam, always the deep thinker, explained. Love, I adore you with all my being. But I also recognize that there are desires, fantasies that perhaps we cannot satisfy alone for the other. What would you say if we explored with respect and love, but with the freedom to experiment? I'm not going to lie, the idea scared me a little at first. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Liam and I had always been a team, partners in every adventure, accomplices in every mischief. And this would be our greatest mischief. So, with clear rules and open hearts, we decided to take this step. The most important thing is honesty, we agreed, and respecting each other's boundaries, I added. The first months were full of new emotions. I met fascinating people, experienced moments I never thought possible. But the most surprising thing was how it brought Liam and me closer together. Our conversations became deeper, our nights more passionate. We shared our experiences, our adventures, and each revelation made us appreciate what we had together even more. However, as in any story, not everything was perfect. There were jealousies, yes, and moments of insecurity. Nights where I wondered if we were really doing the right thing. But then I looked at Liam with those eyes that seemed to see straight into my soul, and I knew I did. He was my rock, my anchor in this sea of new experiences. One day, the normality of our life took an unexpected turn. We were having breakfast when Liam's phone started ringing. I watched his face go from curiosity to shock to shock. It's impossible, he muttered, hanging up the phone. What's going on, love? I asked, my heart beating faster at his expression. It's my father, he said, still in disbelief. He came back home. After more than 5 years sailing on a boat, he decided to come home. I knew very little about Liam's father. He rarely spoke of it, and when he did, it was with a tone of mystery and a mixture of admiration and reserve. Your father? I repeated, not hiding my surprise. But you never told me much about him. I didn't even know he was on a ship all this time. Liam ran a hand through his hair, visibly agitated. I never really knew how to approach the subject, he admitted. My father is a complicated figure. He was always an adventurer, a free spirit. When I was young, his stories of travel and adventure fascinated me, but he was also a mysterious man, always on the move, never settling in one place for long. So what do we do now? I asked, trying to process the news. He wants to meet us, said Liam. He says he has important things to tell us, that he has changed and wants to be part of our lives. The next few days were filled with anticipated tension. Liam was nervous, torn between the excitement of finding his father and the fear of what this meeting could mean. The day we finally met Liam's father, my curiosity was at its peak. As we entered the restaurant where we were meeting, I recognized him instantly. Despite his age, he seemed incredibly strong and virile, with a presence that filled the room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and his firm gait reflected a life of adventure. During dinner, I was fascinated by his manner. He spoke in a deep, confident voice that captured the attention of everyone around him. His stories were otherworldly. It spoke of storms on the high seas, starry nights over distant oceans, and encounters with cultures and places I only knew from books. It was impossible not to notice the difference between him and Liam. While Liam was more reserved and thoughtful, his father was a force of nature, a man who seemed to have taken life head-on and enjoyed every second of it. His masculinity was raw and unfiltered, which I have to admit appealed to me in a way I didn't expect. As I listened to his stories, I noticed how Liam looked at him with a mixture of admiration and something that seemed like a desire for approval. It was clear that the relationship between them was complicated, full of years of distance and unspoken silences. At the end of dinner, Liam's father invited us to his home, a place he described as his personal refuge. He said he wanted to show us some of the relics and souvenirs he had brought back from his travels. Liam accepted, although with some reservation. When I arrived at his house, I was impressed. It was like entering a personal museum, filled with exotic objects and photos of faraway places. Each object had a story, and he told them with a gleam in his eye. At one point in the evening, while Liam was in another room, I found myself alone with his father. "What do you think of all this?" he asked with a penetrating look. "I don't know what to say," I answered honestly. "It's impressive. I've never met anyone with as many stories as you." He smiled, and in that moment, I felt an unexpected connection. It was like he saw something in me that no one else saw, or maybe something I didn't want to admit to myself. That night, walking home with Liam, I couldn't get Liam's father out of my head. I knew I was entering dangerous territory, but something inside me had been awakened, a curiosity and attraction that I couldn't ignore. However, I knew I had to keep these feelings under control for the sake of my relationship with Liam and out of respect for the family who had welcomed me. In the days that followed, Liam's father, who was staying in town for a month, began to organize a series of activities and meetings. He seemed to have a particular interest in spending time with us, and in particular, there were occasions when we were left alone while Liam was at work. I remember one day his father invited me to visit a local art gallery. As we wandered through the rooms filled with fascinating works, the conversation flowed naturally, but there was an underlying tone that I couldn't ignore. "You must have an adventurous spirit, just like Liam, to accept an open marriage," he commented while observing an abstract painting. I was surprised by his frankness, but I responded with a smile. "I think life is too short not to explore all its facets, Liam, and I believe in a life lived to the fullest." He turned to me, his gaze intense. "It's admirable. Many people live limited by fear and prejudice, but you are different." I felt the atmosphere take on a palpable tension. "And you?" I asked, my voice a whisper. "After so many years of traveling, have you found what you were looking for?" He moved a little closer. "I found a lot of things," he said in a low voice. "But there are always new horizons to explore, new experiences to live." Our eyes met, and for a moment, the rest of the world seemed to disappear. There was something about his presence, something magnetic and dangerously attractive. But just then, the sound of an incoming message on my phone rang. It was Liam, reminding me of his love with sweet words. This sound was like a wake-up call, a reminder of reality and what really mattered. One night, while Liam and I were sitting on our couch, curiosity finally overtook me. "Liam, why did you never have much relationship with your father?" I asked delicately. Liam sighed deeply before answering. "My father was always a free soul. Even when he was married to my mother, he was never faithful. He cheated on my mother with many women in town and really didn't behave well. This destroyed our family," he confessed with a tone of sadness in his voice. "I understand," I said, feeling the image I had formed of Liam's father beginning to change. Liam continued, staring into space as if remembering those difficult times. "I guess that's why I don't view infidelity in a traditional way. For me, open relationships are an honest and sincere way of dealing with possible desires. It's a mutual agreement, there's no of deceptions or painful secrets." One afternoon, while Liam was at a work conference that would last all day, his father invited me to lunch. Despite my reservations, I accepted, thinking that it would be an opportunity to better understand this man who had so influenced Liam's life. We found ourselves in a small bistro with a warm atmosphere. The conversation flowed easily, and although I was conscious of keeping my distance, I couldn't help but be captivated by his charisma and fascinating stories. "You must have had an amazing life, full of adventure," I commented, taking a sip of my drink. "It's been an interesting life, yes," he replied, staring at me. "But she was also lonely in many ways. Freedom has its price." I felt a knot in my stomach. His gaze was intense, and there was a tone in his voice that resonated with an emotional depth I hadn't perceived before. "I think we're all looking for some type of connection," I said, trying to keep the conversation on neutral ground. "And you?" he asked, leaning forward. "Have you found what you're looking for in your relationship with Liam?" His question took me by surprise. Liam and I have a very special relationship. We understand and respect each other. He smiled, but there was something about his smile that made me feel exposed. That's admirable. But sometimes, even in the best relationships, there are certain desires that remain unexplored, desires that can be tempting. I felt my pulse speed up. The way he looked at me, the way he spoke, everything about him emanated a magnetic attraction. "I guess there are always temptations," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "The real question is what we do with these temptations," he said softly. "Some people avoid them, others explore them." My father-in-law's farewell party came faster than I expected. The three of us met in a quiet restaurant, one that Liam and I often frequented. Dinner passed between casual conversations, memories of days gone by, and comfortable laughter. It was evident that Liam was trying to reconnect with his father, trying to heal old wounds and look toward the future with optimism. My father-in-law, for his part, was charming as always, full of stories and anecdotes. But underneath that facade, I could sense a kind of sadness, like he was saying goodbye to something more than the city. When dinner finished, we said goodbye at the restaurant door. "Take good care of yourself," said my father-in-law, hugging Liam and then me. It was a pleasure reconnecting with my son and meeting you." His embrace was warm but brief, and with a final goodbye, he walked away into the night. On the way home, as I was taking off my coat, a small piece of paper fell to the floor. It was a note from my father-in-law saying, "Life is made of emotions and adventures. The one who stays with a desire loses." Next to the words he had written a date, place, and time for the following Saturday. My heart raced while reading it. What should I do? Liam, ignoring the note, came over and hugged me from behind. "I'm glad I spent this time with my dad," he said. "But I'm even happier to have a wife like you." At that moment, looking at the note in my hand and feeling Liam's sincere love, I knew what I had to do. I crumpled up the note and threw it in the trash. My father-in-law's temptation was strong, but it was not worth risking what Liam and I had built together. Our relationship, with its challenges and unique beauty, was what I truly valued. That night, as I snuggled up to Liam, I knew I had made the right decision. Life is full of emotions and adventures, yes, but also of choices. And I had chosen the love, honesty, and respect that I shared with Liam, a treasure that I would not change for any fleeting adventure. I hope you liked my story. I would love to know what you think in the comments, and please help us by giving a like and subscribing to the channel. There will be many more stories like this in the future. Thank you so much.
My name is Helen, and this is my story, one that I never thought to tell. I am 32 years old, with brown hair that falls in waves to my shoulders, and eyes that change color between green and brown, depending on the light. I am of average height, with a figure that remains curvy despite not visiting the gym as often as I would like. I work as a graphic designer, a profession that allows me to explore my creative side, although it often immerses me in deadlines and stress. Married for 5 years to Thomas, a kind and hardworking man, our life together is comfortable, but I can't help but feel that something is missing. Thomas is an engineer, always busy, and our conversations have gone from being deep and exciting to discussing what we'll have for dinner or what needs repair at home. We don't have children yet. We both decided to focus on our careers before taking that big step. My brother-in-law, Harry, is Thomas' younger brother. He is the complete opposite of him, casual, adventurous, and with a smile that always seems to hide a secret. Despite our differences, we have always maintained a cordial, although somewhat distant, relationship. Last summer, everything changed. We planned a family vacation to a country house on the coast, in Cancun. It was an idyllic place, surrounded by nature, with the whisper of the sea as a backdrop. There was nothing in particular that made me foreshadow what would happen. It was a trip like so many others, or at least that's what I thought. But something in the atmosphere of the place, the freedom of the sea, and the absence of my husband, created a context that I had never experienced before. What happened that summer, what I discovered about myself and about Harry, changed my life in ways I never imagined. This is the story of that summer, a story of discovery, passion, and yes, infidelity. A story that torments me, and at the same time taught me about the hidden corners of desire and the heart. The start of our vacation felt like a necessary respite. Cancun, with its vibrant energy and beautiful landscapes, was the perfect place to unwind. Harry's work in the Cancun night scene had allowed him to acquire a beautiful villa with sea views, a place that promised to be an oasis of tranquility and fun. We arrived on a warm July day. Thomas, my husband, looked visibly overwhelmed by work, but hopeful that he could relax for a few days before returning to his duties. Harry greeted us with his usual carefree smile, showing us around the villa. It was stunning, modern, spacious, with large windows that let in the sunlight and offered a spectacular view of the Mediterranean. But what caught my attention the most was the pool, a mirror of crystal-clear water surrounded by sun loungers, promising hours of relaxation under the sun. The first few days were a whirlwind of activities. We visited paradisiacal beaches, tried local cuisine in small restaurants on the island, and explored markets full of crafts and colors. Thomas seemed to get younger with each passing day, and Harry was the perfect host, always with a new adventure to propose. However, not everything was perfect. At night, Thomas usually retired early, exhausted from the day and still preoccupied with work. I was left alone with Harry, who never seemed to get tired. We chatted on the terrace, sharing bottles of local wine while the sea breeze played with our hair. Those moments under the starry sky of Cancun began to have a special meaning for me. Harry listened to me in a way that Thomas had not done in years, and his easy laugh made me feel light and carefree. Despite the growing closeness with Harry, there was nothing inappropriate in our treatment. It was a friendship that flourished in fertile soil, fueled by the magic of the island and shared solitude. I began to look forward to those nights, those moments of complicity and laughter, although in the back of my mind a voice warned me that I was playing with fire. Thomas, oblivious to these subtle changes, was still immersed in his own world, grateful for the rest, but always with one eye on his phone, tied to his responsibilities. And I, in the middle of that paradise, began to feel increasingly disconnected from my husband and strangely attracted to Harry's vital and unbridled energy. One night, Harry organized a party on a nearby beach. The idea was to enjoy the nightlife of Cancun, something he knew very well. Thomas, although initially reluctant, agreed to join, perhaps motivated by not wanting to appear bored by my enthusiasm. The beach was illuminated by torches and colored lights that reflected in the water, creating a magical and surreal atmosphere. The music, a mix of electronic rhythms and sounds of the sea, blended perfectly with people's laughter and conversations. We mixed with the crowd, dancing and enjoying the cocktails, especially the gin and tonics that Harry insisted on making for us. As the night progressed and the effects of the alcohol took hold, I noticed a change in Harry's behavior. His attention toward me intensified, his glances were longer, his smiles more meaningful. Although I initially attributed it to the festive atmosphere, I couldn't ignore the electricity generated between us. Every time our arms accidentally touched each other while dancing, a shiver ran down my spine. For my part, I found myself enjoying that attention. There was something incredibly attractive and forbidden in the way Harry looked at me, as if he saw something in me that no one else saw. Curiosity and morbidity began to grow inside me. Was he really flirting with me, or was it just his way? I needed to know. Thomas, oblivious to this growing tension, seemed increasingly tired and distracted. At midnight, he decided to return to the villa, leaving me the option of staying a little longer. Although I felt slight remorse, the excitement of exploring what was happening with Harry was stronger. We stayed on the beach, talking and laughing under the stars. Harry became increasingly bold in his comments, hinting at subtleties that made my heart beat faster. Although part of me knew I was crossing a dangerous line, the other part was fascinated by this new facet of myself, a desired and desiring woman, far from daily responsibilities and routines. The game of looks and words continued, each measuring how far they could go without crossing the threshold. But the attraction was undeniable, and the night wrapped us in its mantle of possibilities and secrets. The morning after the party, I woke up with a mix of excitement and nervousness. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, announcing another splendid day in Cancun. Thomas, affected by his hangover, was less enthusiastic, dragging himself out of bed with evident fatigue. It was then that Harry, full of energy as always, proposed spending the day on his boat. I found the idea tempting, but it also filled me with apprehension, especially after the tension and fooling around the night before. Thomas, for his part, quickly declined the invitation, saying that he was tired and suggesting that it be just Harry and me. Although I hesitated, the idea of spending the day at sea, away from everything, was too attractive to resist. Once on the boat, the atmosphere was relaxed but charged with palpable energy. Harry was a perfect host, making sure I was comfortable and enjoying the day. We sailed towards a secluded cove, where the crystal-clear water invited us to dive. As we swam and sunbathed, the conversation flowed naturally, but there was always an undercurrent of sexual tension. Harry, with a confidence that bordered on audacity, began to tell stories of his conquests and adventures on the island. Each anecdote was laced with insinuations and double meanings, and I couldn't help but feel intrigued and flattered by their attention. His words suggested possibilities, exploring forbidden terrain with a mix of humor and sass. As the sun moved across the sky, our bodies subtly moved closer, A touch as he handed me a drink. A hand that took a second longer than necessary to help me onto the boat. Each small touch sent an electrical current through my body, fueling a tension that grew by the moment. At one point, while we were sitting next to each other, our hands accidentally met. The look we exchanged in that moment was charged with an unexpressed desire. And I want to, and I can't, that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Although I quickly removed my hand, the contact had been enough to confirm that what was between us was not just a figment of my imagination. The atmosphere of the ship became more intense, a dance of attraction and reserve, where every word and every gesture seemed to have a deeper meaning. Yet despite the growing tension, we both maintained a facade of normality, aware that crossing that line would change everything irrevocably. The day ended with lots of laughter and good vibes, but nothing else happened. On one of those hot summer nights in Cancun, where the air seems to vibrate with its own energy, I slept restlessly next to Thomas, my mind fluttering between dreams and forbidden thoughts. I woke up thirsty, the heat and restlessness had dried out my throat. Silently, I slipped out of bed and walked to the kitchen to drink some water. The village was calm, plunged into darkness, with only the soft glow of the moon illuminating the path. As I was filling a glass in the kitchen, I heard the front door open. It was Harry, returning from one of his usual night outs. Judging by his walk and soft laugh, it was clear that he had been drinking. We were surprised to find ourselves in the kitchen, he with that lopsided smile and bright eyes, and me, with my silk nightgown and messy hair. We started talking in whispers, trying not to wake Thomas. The conversation was light at first, but soon the tension accumulated over the last few days began to be present. Harry approached me under the pretext of helping me serve the water. I could feel the heat of his body, the aroma of his cologne mixed with the smell of the sea and the Cancun night. Our eyes met, and in that moment, something changed. The atmosphere became charged with electricity, and the proximity became almost unbearable. Then, driven by alcohol and tension, Harry kissed me. It was a passionate and surprising kiss, filled with all the repressed desire of the last few days. For a moment, I was paralyzed with surprise, but that surprise quickly turned into excitement. My inhibitions faded, replaced by a burning desire that had been dormant and now consumed all rational thought. We became entangled in a dance of passion and urgency, our bodies meeting with an intensity that erased everything else. The kitchen, with its cold surfaces and dim lighting, became our secret world, far from the gaze and restrictions of our daily lives. It was a mixture of excitement, guilt, and ecstasy. Every touch, every kiss, was an affirmation of our connection, but also a reminder of the betrayal we were committing. We were crossing a line that we knew would change everything, but at that moment, nothing else mattered. The following days were a whirlwind of contradictory emotions. Guilt plagued me every time I looked at Thomas, reminding me of the betrayal I had committed. However, there was a part of me that longed for more, that felt alive and wanted in Harry's arms. The tension between my brother-in-law and me was palpable, a game of glances and unspoken words that was intertwined with the daily routine. Every chance encounter in the villa was a mix of desire and regret, a dangerous dance we played on the brink of revelation. Thomas, oblivious to this internal storm, remained the same, although I noticed that some of the joy of the first days of vacation had disappeared. Maybe it was the nearness of the end of our trip or the workload that awaited him, but something in him had changed too. The last night of our vacation, Harry found an excuse to see us alone. He suggested going to a nearby bar, one of those hidden places in Cancun, where music and night merge into a perfect escape. I told Thomas that I needed a moment alone, a little respite before returning to our life in the city. The bar was intimate and dark, with dim lights and music that invited anonymity. Harry and I sat in a secluded corner, talking in low voices. The conversation was inconsequential, but each word was loaded with meaning. The attraction was inescapable, and despite my attempts to maintain my composure, I knew I was about to give in again. It was Harry who took the initiative, guiding me towards the bathroom with disarming confidence. What happened there was a whirlwind of passion, a total abandonment to the desires that consumed us. We gave ourselves to each other with an intensity that erased any thought of guilt or consequence. It was an act of pure passion and desire, a fire that consumed everything in its path. Then, as he returned to the villa, reality began to set in. The magnitude of what we had done, the betrayal committed, it all seemed overwhelming. I knew that what happened in Cancun could not, nor should it, be transferred to our normal lives. It was a closed chapter, a secret that I would keep in the depths of my being. The vacation ended with a mixture of relief and regret. Relief at returning to the safety of my usual life, and grief at the loss of that intensity and connection I had experienced. Returning home was a return to reality, to a life that now felt more complex and full of shadows. Looking back, that summer in Cancun feels like a distant dream, a chapter of my life tinged with passion and debauchery, but also deep introspection. What I experienced with Harry was an escape from reality, a parenthesis in my existence where the usual rules did not apply. But even now, as life has returned to normal, the repercussions of those days continue to resonate within me. I learned that desire and passion can be powerful forces, capable of taking us to unexpected and sometimes dangerous places. The intensity of what I felt was overwhelming, but also eye-opening. I faced parts of myself that I didn't know, a Helen that was bolder, more alive, but also more vulnerable. The guilt for the betrayal committed against Thomasis, a weight that I still carry. Although he never knew what happened, that burden has changed the way I see myself and my marriage. I have struggled to reconcile the person I was in Cancun with the person I am in my daily life, and that process has not been easy. However, this experience has taught me about the importance of honesty and communication in a relationship. It has made me question what I want and what I need, not only from my partner, but from myself. It has shown me that ignoring emotional problems or shortcomings in a relationship only leads to greater dissatisfaction and possible mistakes. Now looking forward, I am committed to building a more authentic and fulfilling life and marriage. Although I can't change what happened, I can learn from it and use those lessons to grow as a person and as a couple. This summer in Cancun was a turning point in my life, a moment of clarity in the midst of chaos. Although I am not proud of everything I did, I am grateful for the lessons learned and the opportunity to rediscover myself and rethink my path forward. And you? How would you have acted in my situation? I hope you don't judge me too much for this. If you want to enjoy more shocking confessions, you can subscribe to the channel and like it. It's free for you and it really encourages me to continue creating content. That being said, until the next adventure.
My name is Jessica, although my friends always call me Jess. I'm 1 month away from marrying the love of my life, and I honestly couldn't be more excited. I have always dreamed of this day since I was a little girl, imagining myself in a dazzling white dress, walking down the aisle toward my future. But before that happens, there's something important I have to do: my bachelorette party. It will be a unique occasion to get all my friends together and remember our university days when everything was parties, dances, and zero responsibilities. Sometimes you miss the innocence of youth. I live in New York, a place that I adore for the amount of activities it allows you to do, and for that frenetic day-to-day that makes you squeeze life to the fullest. However, for my bachelorette party, I'm looking for something more than just a night in a big city. I want sun, sea, and unforgettable adventures. For this reason, my friends and I have decided to go to the Riviera Maya, Mexico. Imagine white sand beaches, crystal clear waters, and a party that never ends. It is the perfect setting to say goodbye to my single life before marrying my sweetheart Will. I have to admit, I've always liked being the center of attention a little bit. Not not in a vain sense, but I enjoy being the hostess, organizing events that people will remember for years. And this bachelorette party will be no exception. I've been planning every detail for weeks. From accommodation to daily activities, I want everything to be perfect. My friends deserve the best, after all. They have been by my side every step of this journey towards marriage. Now, with the date quickly approaching, I can feel a tingle of nerves, not just for the wedding, but for this adventure I'm about to embark on with my closest friends. They will be a few days where we can relax, laugh, and create memories that we will treasure forever. In my mind, I already see myself there, with a piña colada in my hand, the sun kissing my skin, and my friends laughing next to me. Let's explore, dance, have adventures, and yes, maybe a little drama, but the good kind. There's nothing like feeling the ocean breeze and the freedom of being in a new and exciting place. All obviously with the respect that my husband deserves, of course. I'm practically a married woman. The day finally arrived. With suitcases in hand and adrenaline through the roof, my beautiful friends and I got on the plane to the Riviera Maya. From the moment we took off, the power was electric. We promised ourselves that this trip would be unforgettable. "Girls, this is going to be epic," shouted Charlotte, always the most outgoing of the group, as she reviewed her list of must-do things to do in the Riviera Maya. Laura, the most organized, nodded enthusiastically, showing the app on her phone with all our itineraries planned in detail. We arrived at the hotel, and oh God, it was like entering an earthly paradise. A luxurious, all-inclusive hotel with views of the turquoise sea, vibrant music, free piña coladas, and pool parties that looked like something out of a movie. "This is exactly what we needed," commented Helena, as we drank our welcome drinks, and I couldn't agree more. It was at one of those pool parties where we met a group of friends from Italy. They were a lively bunch, clearly also there to enjoy themselves to the fullest. "Hello, are you here to escape reality too?" joked one of them, a tall boy who certainly wasn't bad at all. They were the profile of muscular Italians with tattoos who looked like they were the life of the party. Some crazy people. We introduced ourselves, and the conversation quickly flowed naturally. There was something that made us feel as if we had known them all our lives. And the truth is that we laughed a lot with them. To be honest, the atmosphere was pure fun and flirtation. Between the piña coladas and the Caribbean sun, the boys not only had eyes for my friends, but they also gave me the occasional look and playful comment. "Are you sure you want to get married, Jess? Because you have a couple of interesting options here," one of them joked, winking at me. I, of course, laughed and played along. "Oh, guys, you'd like that, but I already have a ring and everything. Of course, if you find me single, I'll teach more than one of you a lesson." I responded with a mischievous smile, raising my hand to show them my wedding ring. Commitment. They laughed and continued with the jokes. "Well, if you change your mind, we're here," they said, and we all laughed together. Meanwhile, I continued with my matchmaking mission for Laura and Francesco. Whenever there was an opportunity, I would jokingly tell them, "Look at these two. They look like they're straight out of a romantic movie. When is the wedding?" And we all laughed, Laura, being the shyest, blushed a little, but you could tell she enjoyed Francesco's attention. After several days of this bachelorette party in paradise, I was feeling surprisingly happy. Every moment was like a breath of fresh air, taking me further and further away from my real life. I had immersed myself in this unique vacation bubble, a parallel world where daily worries had no place. I was aware that these moments would never happen again. It was the last time in my life that I would experience something like this, and I was determined to make the most of it. One night, all together, we went to a nightclub. We had spent the entire afternoon at the pool, drinking, dancing, and in an atmosphere of complete carefreeness. To be honest, we were all a little drunk, carried away by the euphoria and joy of the moment. At the club, with the music pumping and neon lights all over the place, I found myself next to Francesco at the bar, waiting to order another couple of drinks. The atmosphere was very good, and among the crowd, our colleagues danced and laughed nonstop. So, Francesco, when are you planning on taking the plunge with Laura? Or are you just going to be up all night talking? I said, with a playful smile, giving him a friendly nudge. Francesco, with that familiar mischievous smile, leaned towards me and said quietly, "You know, actually, the girl I'm interested in isn't Laura." For a second, his comment threw me off. "Oh yeah? And who's the lucky one then?" I asked, half joking, half curious. Francesco moved a little closer and said, "My favorite is you, Jess. I know you're getting married and all that, but I'm not jealous. If you wanted to, you'd be the lucky one to enjoy a wild night in the big boys' room." "Francesco," he said, while laughing hesitantly. Francesco's confession left me surprisingly heated. Maybe it was the effect of the alcohol, but I couldn't stop my mind from imagining more than it should. For a moment, images of a wild night with Francesco invaded my thoughts. After ordering the drinks, we returned to the dance floor. The music in the club was at its highest point, and Francesco and I were in the middle of the dance floor, dancing to the rhythm of the most viral beats. Every song that played seemed to want us to get closer. Between dances, Francesco would lean towards me and whisper in my ear with a voice that mixed mischief and defiance. "Have you made up your mind about my indecent proposal yet? Because by dancing like that, you're making me reconsider being the object of your last prank before the big day." His warm breath brushed against my neck, making my skin crawl. I, responding to his game, and perhaps getting too carried away, answered him with a mischievous smile. "Oh, Francesco, if it weren't for the fact that I already have a ring on my finger, I would show you what a real Yankee is." Our gazes crossed, full of a game of seduction that made me feel very alive and heated. Maybe I was overdoing it. After a few hours, the club closed. Despite the hour, neither of us wanted the night to end. So, back at the hotel, some of us, still full of energy, decided to stay by the pool a little longer, chatting and laughing. The conversations were playful, full of laughter and memories of the night. Little by little, the group dispersed, and without realizing it, I found myself alone with Francesco. The atmosphere between us was different now, more intimate, calmer, but with tension that we had shared all night. We were sitting on the edge of the pool, our feet skimming the water, when Francesco turned to me with a look that seemed to read me. "Well, Jess, I think it's time to go to sleep," he said in a soft but firm voice. There was a pause, a moment in which only the soft murmur of the water and our breathing could be heard. Then, with a smile, he added, "But if you want, we can continue the talk in my room." His proposal caught me by surprise, although deep down, I was expecting one last attempt on his part. And there I was, alone, without any friends present who could witness anything. What should I do? The truth is that if something happened, no one would ever find out, since everyone was sleeping. Should I allow myself the last madness of my life before getting married? Finally, I decided to walk away from temptation. I got up quickly, mumbling a good night, and headed quickly to my room. As I undressed, my mind was racing. Had I done the right thing? Was this my last chance to experience something wild and passionate? That's when something clicked in my head. The concept of carpe diem took hold of me. On impulse, I decided to embark on the adventure. I left my room and headed to Francesco's. My heart was pounding in my chest, each step bringing me closer to a controversial decision. I got to his door, took a deep breath, and knocked. Francesco opened the door, and his smile when he saw me completely turned me on. Without saying a word, I entered his room, and the door closed behind me. We spent the night together. Everything was pure passion and madness that made me go on a cloud. It was a very intense night. Something in my life that I would always remember as a secret, kept just for me. Francesco created an environment where I felt safe and wanted. The next morning, as I was preparing to leave Francesco's room, I stopped and turned to him, looking him straight in the eyes. "Francesco, what happened here can't leave this room. This is our secret for life," I told him. Francesco nodded silently. "Don't worry, Jess. This is between you and me forever," he replied while winking at me. As I left his room and returned to mine, I felt guilt, emotion, and a feeling of adrenaline that I had never experienced. The next day passed as if nothing had happened. Laura, although she seemed suspicious, especially after seeing me dancing with Francesco the night before, said nothing. Maybe it was jealousy, maybe just curiosity, but he stayed out of it, which reassured me enormously. The trip came to an end, and with it, the return to my reality. I returned to my daily life, to the final preparations for my wedding, but with a secret that I now carried with me. Sometimes, in moments of silence, my mind would return to that night in the Riviera Maya, to that impulsive decision I made. I learned something about myself, about my limits and desires. And although I knew that what I did was wrong, I also understood that perfection is a myth and that we all make mistakes. Furthermore, I was clear that once I married Will, something like this would never happen again. It was just one time, period. I'm not proud, obviously, but things happened that way, and I take full responsibility. I hope you liked my story. Tell me what you think in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more unique and special stories. Thank you very much to all